The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digital.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digital TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Hello beautiful people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Era tize tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yonna gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera ku wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
It's the 3rd of December 2022. Welcome to the Interface Show with Dr. Kizza Besigye. I am your host, Nixon Segawa. We want to wish you a good weekend and we welcome you to this wonderful show. We believe there is a lot that you'll benefit as you are tuned in to this show. You are tuned in to Digital TV. We indeed welcome you and we ask you to get that link and share it with your friend, share it with your neighbor, share it with your loved one, and inform them that Dr. Kizza Besigye is here with us, and we are going to hold discussions on a number of issues, a number of current affairs, a number of, we are to draw insight on a number of things that have been happening in and around our country. I welcome you once again. At this moment, I want to welcome Doctor to say hi to the people, and then we get into the program of the day. You're welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much for that welcome, and glad to be here always on Saturday. A very good morning to all the viewers that are tuned into this digital program of the Alternative, and I hope you've had a good week. I spent most of the week out of the country, so I'm trying to catch up with what has been going on. But clearly what has struck me, I think this week, is the escalating level of violent crime. And it's certainly not surprising at all because of the levels of, you know, deprivation that exists in our midst, where, you know, hordes and hordes of people simply can't survive this. The crisis we have been talking about, failure to thrive crisis, is bound to breed increased violence and criminality. And I think we are seeing a bit of this. You know, I was shocked by story of a young man who is a cameraman of NTV, our friend Ronald Galiwango, who was going to work in the morning.
So sad.
On a border, and were ambushed by these, you know, club-wielding people who struck a club at the driver, the rider of the border, and they went down and they hit all of them and took the bike and whatever else they had. And this is, you know, quite widespread. So yeah, it's a difficult time, I think, for many, many people. And, you know, I don't know whether something can be done to avert this, but it's certainly going to get much worse, especially as we go into the Christmas season, end of the year. I think we are bound to see a lot of this. So our people out there, please be careful, especially if you are moving late in the evening or very early in the morning. And certainly even during the day, be mindful of what is going on around you. Yeah, but otherwise, I really hope that you've had a good week, and I sympathize as usual with all those that have suffered setbacks and challenges of different kinds, you know, losses in the families, illnesses which are also escalating, you know, many people in the hospitals, and with all the attendant difficulties, very, very difficult time having a patient at this moment. So I sympathize with all of you in that regard, and certainly those who are celebrating, I also wish you a very good celebration. In fact, one of our young colleagues and activist, Charles Waswa, even as we talk, is being united with his dear one at the St. Francis Chapel in Makerere. And maybe, and several other functions that are going on. So we also celebrate with all those that are having a good time.
Okay, okay. Doctor, we welcome you, and we pray and we wish that we are really going to have a very nice discussion today. A lot has been happening in the country, a lot has been happening, and we must remember that on 1st December, that's the day that we commemorate the World AIDS Day. A lot of efforts have been have taken place. Government has had a lot of interventions, but as we are discussing today, Doctor is also going to discuss and will be showing us what needs to be done to up the game, to up the fight against HIV/AIDS. There are a lot of submissions that the President also made yesterday in regards to COVID, in regards to the criminality around, and Doctor is also going to be highlighting on and responding to some of those submissions that the President made yesterday in his address. So please stay here, stay around, get that link and share it with your friend and share it with your neighbor. We are going to be discussing a lot in these 2 hours that we are having here today. Doctor, when you talk about criminality and the festive season, we indeed expect a lot because it has always been happening wherever we are entering the festive time. Crimes get to rise. And this now comes at the time when even the police stations that we are having, the police posts that were close to us have been withdrawn. We are now entering a festive season. Our friends and loved ones are now being attacked and clobbered. What really needs to be done? Because as you were submitting, you really pointed as if you also wonder whether there is something that we can do to avert all this.
Yes, because you see, I mean, frankly, the situation in the country, I think, is really increasingly indicative of a failed state. Because that's how states fail, you know, when they can no longer deal with, as I pointed out some time back, the very reason that governments evolved, formed from primitive societies where people lived individually, the very reason that governance, centralized authority evolved was mainly to provide security to communities, you know, against other communities, against threats to these communities. And so it's a very, very fundamental, you know, tenet of any governance structure. And I have also pointed out that security goes beyond just physical security. You know, that if you have no food, you cannot have security. You know, food security is very fundamental of the overall security of a community. That you must have food security, you must have health security, you know, you must have, and then you come to the, you know, physical security of attacks, you know, where people come to attack others and so on. And there is no doubt that we simply have failed. Our governance has failed us in achieving that. So if you have people who simply can't have food, do not know what happens when they have sick ones in their homes, because they cannot access health care. If they take patients to health care facilities, they will need money to keep them there, which money they do not have. So all these pressures are what lead to you know, theft and robbery and all kinds of other crimes that we face. So it's not something that is just solvable by having a police post. One needs more fundamental, you know, considerations of how communities are thriving, are surviving and thriving, and you know, and able to have basic necessaries of life. Once those basics are not there, then you are bound to have all these problems. Now, the other result of these basics not being there, that people cannot buy anything, they have no money to buy, eventually it hits government also. Okay. Because government revenue comes from people. So if people are destitute, if you have, you know, whole communities that are destitute, it means that, you know, what Mr. Museveni has always been talking about, you know, we have a market of 150 million. That's not a market. Market to be there, you have heads.
So we don't have a market.
No. Heads. Market is not just counting the heads that are around.
The population is rising, so we have market.
Yes, it's not a market. A market must have what to use to buy, to go to the market. So an effective market is absent you know, because they are people, but they cannot buy. They have no capacity to buy anything. And once you get to that, then revenues for government, because they come from how people transact, revenues go down. And if revenues go down, it means government cannot even afford to pay people to manage the security. So you cannot have enough policemen in the different areas. And that's why they were deploying 2 policemen at a police post, 3 policemen, 1 policeman, you know, who now they have realized are vulnerable. Because even if we are not armed and they are just 2 policemen, we can come 10 people and grab them and take their guns. And so they have woken up to that. They have had to withdraw all these and try to gather them where they can protect themselves at least. And that you are right.
Yes.
In a situation where the state of deprivation is as we have been discussing, and now you even don't have anybody that offers, you know, some kind of deterrence that if you do this, there may be somebody out there, then we are going to have, you know, total chaos. And you know, as I've said, you know, this means that we are slowly but surely approaching a totally failed state. And it has no redress, you see, because it has been happening over, it's an insidious process. It has been happening over decades, where resources that are gathered from all of us are applied on very few. So the means of most people has been, you know, going down slowly but continuously until we are in this situation. And even now, there is no realization. That's what is even more shocking. There is no realization on the part of those in the governance of this country that there is a crisis. That's why their habits have simply not changed. You know, they still take 2 billion shillings to State House every day for consumption. They still, you know, are overseeing this huge establishment that is not necessary, but that is not necessary for the survival of the population, but is necessary for the survival of those in power, because it's the patronage system, you know, of keeping people, more and more people around you so that they don't oppose you, you know, and you keep on making them happy by paying them all these MPs, you know. So this whole establishment is simply not sustainable. And unless and until there is, you know, a reversal of that, of this, you know, immense action of resources from everybody into to service a few, then as sure as day follows night, we are heading into a failed state. But as we do that, that's why, you know, some of us wake up to say we shouldn't allow our country to get there. And this is why, you know, every Ugandan who really cares for this country, and this is regardless of which sport you are on, in terms of the social, you know, setup of the country, social economic setup of the country, you ought to realize that once the country fails, we all go down with it. It will not save you, because you have a lot of money, it will, unless you flee and get out of the country. You know, if we become a Somalia, then everybody will be consumed by that. What you have been developing, that you are building, you know, apartments, you are building malls, they will go up in flames, you know. And to avert that, we must reflect on the governance. This is why the whole idea we've been talking about of a transition from this decadent governance to a one where people's voices are heard and where therefore resources can quickly go to all people to revive them. It's like irrigation. You know, when there has been a drought, there is a drought in the population. That's why they cannot thrive, because all the resources that would give life to all these people, all the resources have been sucked out of them. So what will be needed is to bring back the taps of resources, to make sure that everybody is served, that people can all have services, quality and ample services to all of them. That is the resources coming back. That will not happen unless all those people have a say in what is going on in the country. And they will not have a say unless they fight for it. So rather than, you know, each one just trying to survive on their own by maybe snatching a phone, maybe doing we all need simply to get together and say no. Enough is enough. NRM junta must stop here. And we have a transition that can change the direction of where resources go in this country.
Maybe, Doctor, to throw more light, Ugandans need to appreciate, when you talk of a failed state, you need to paint to them a picture that this is how Uganda will be if we allow to get into that state. Maybe you throw more light on the risk of getting into that state.
Well, but I have just said so, you know, unless people have not been following what is going on in Somalia. Or even if you actually don't go to Somalia, just nearby here in Eastern Congo, because there is really no government in Eastern Congo. Everybody survives on their own, and that's why, you know, those who can't live there, you must have a gun and fight for your survival, otherwise they flee. And you can see all of them fleeing into Uganda. But if you are in Congo, there is lawlessness, there is, people will not, there are no functioning courts that, you know, you will take somebody to court, and that the rule of law collapses, you know, and it's a fight for the fittest, and, you know, whatever is built as, as resources of the country will eventually be crumbled and broken down. And that's how, you know, those, and to regain order in such a country takes a very, very long time. And many African countries are heading that way if they are not careful. We've seen what has been going on in Central African Republic. And you know, sometimes there is, you know, when we say like this, people who don't, you know, dig deep into what is going on, we say, no, but, you know, everything seems to be okay. You know, there is music and people are dancing in different parts of the country, and there are all these neon lights at night, and you know, life is okay. They are not looking at the fundamentals of how many people simply can't thrive, of how even public institutions are dysfunctional. Like the police you've been talking about, how dysfunctional it is, you know? And one needs even now to go to any police station and see how, you know, work goes on in a police station and how courts are functioning and so on, to know that we are really approaching that crisis. And if people don't take heed, it will materialize. You know, all we can do is simply to shine a torch on the problem and to say we need to take action. And we've been very clear about what action needs to be taken. It is for the population to unite, to organize, to say enough is enough, to break down the rule of the few people that hold power by force in this country. And therefore hold our resources by force. That we must break down. There is no shortcut. And the sooner we organize ourselves to do that, the better we will be in avoiding that terrible, going down the terrible cliff into the failed state, which we are approaching.
Okay, Doctor, thank you. Doctor, when we are still in line with the same criminality and then security of the country, the president yesterday came out in his address and he linked the crimes and the attacks that have been going on to on police stations and security installations, and he says that there are elements of criminality and some ADF members. We seem to be staying with ADF every now and then, and as we keep fighting them, the other side, they seem to come and cause attack here and there. What do you read there, Doctor?
Well, he must blame somebody. I mean, since he has no answer, he has to look for something to blame. But as I have pointed out, there are two very likely sources of what we are seeing. One, which is inescapable, is that people who are failing to thrive will fight in one way or another for their survival.
That's true.
If you push people to the wall, they will fight back because they have nowhere to be pushed anymore. They will simply fight back. And there are many, many Ugandans whose backs are on the wall. Now, so these will either fight individually, which is the ordinary crime we are talking about.
Yes, yes.
You know, snatch your phone, hit
you with
a club or an iron bar and take whatever you have, you know, whatever it is, whatever form. Grab a gun and use it to rob or whatever. So that criminality is one of the responses of the failure to thrive on the part of the population.
Okay.
You know, where you find that there is no crime or very low crime rate, you'll find that the basics of the people in that community are catered for. You know, and there are places to look at and to aspire to. Places like the Scandinavia.
Yes.
You will not find people seated on the verandas begging. No, they are no beggars. And it's not because
there are no beggars.
They are no beggars. They are simply no beggars.
Hey.
You can go anywhere in any of these, you know, whether it's Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Norway, you will not find people, you know, begging, which you find in the United States, the biggest economy in the world. So it's not about the size of the economy.
Okay.
And that's why the crime rate in the United States is extremely high, because some people have, others simply have nowhere to sleep. Now it's winter. There are thousands and thousands of people in the United States whom they make shelters for them to go and keep warm. You know, shelters where they can keep them in winter. Who are homeless. People who are homeless, you know, hundreds and thousands of people in the United States. But you'll not find a single homeless person in the Scandinavia. Nobody is homeless. You won't even find overcrowding in a home because they are welfare officers who visit homes to see whether, you know, everything is okay. Whether if you are overcrowded, they will do something about it, because that may start causing diseases. You know, so social welfare of the population, if it is not taken care of, that's what translates into all these. Now, but beyond individual criminality, individuals' criminality,
Yes.
you can also now have organized crime. People who organize and form groups that attack and grab things or whatever. Organized crime also arises. Beyond organized crime, you can have political insurgency. People who say now, let's fight the regime so that we can also have power to solve these problems. So inside, you can have, it's the whole range. You can you'll have high criminality, you'll have organized crime, which are syndicates of people who are...
The likes of Sobis.
Yes, you'll have that, and you'll have insurgency. So these, whether it's ADF, whether it's another one, even if you kill anybody associated with ADF, others will form. But, so this is on the one side. But on the other side, which is also highly likely, in fact, possibly what we are witnessing comes more from there, is the state organized violence. When they know that people cannot survive, and they know that all this, therefore, is going to be the result, they can also try to preempt it, create their own violence, attribute it to those others as being the cause, so that then they can justify rolling out massive repressive operations. And we should bless ourselves for that, because they have done it before. These people in government, they did it in Kasese. Even a large part of what happened in northern Uganda was exactly that, because they thought the people of northern Uganda were opposed to what they were doing, were likely to fight them, and they therefore, perpetuated insecurity in northern Uganda, and operations and torture of people and killing of those they think may not be of their thinking, and so on and so forth. So all this is what we need to avoid. We must end the NRM rule urgently. If we don't, all these problems are going to keep on multiplying, and we will end up in a failed state. So this is a national call. All Ugandans must know that even as we end this year, we have a very, very urgent duty to do to end this process that has been, developing on our country all these years, and is now at a very, very critical stage.
Okay, Doctor. We shall put that to an end, and we get into something else. Doctor, just the other day, and it's still the month of December, we get to commemorate and remember our loved ones that lost their lives to to the virus, the HIV virus, and a lot of messages are passed on to really warn whoever perhaps has not caught the virus to be protective, and a lot of measures are being put in place. According to statistics, the prevalence state now of HIV among the adults 15 to 64 is in 6.2%. The female is 7.6%, then the male is 4.7%. That's where we stand as a country. You have been here long enough than me, who is here, and most of the Ugandans, since our population is youthful. You know all the interventions that government has put in place. You have been following whichever intervention has taken place. How do you feel we have handled this fight against the virus?
Well, first, maybe before looking at how the virus itself has been handled, I think I would want to take off time to, you know, thank and congratulate, you know, Ugandans that have led in different ways the effort to halt the escalation and to roar back where we were. And especially the persons who have been living with HIV themselves. I think they have done a tremendous lot to fight, first of all, for themselves to remain, you know, healthy and working, but also to, you know, conscientize, to inform and to awaken the population to the scourge itself, including those who are no longer with us, like the File Bongole Lutayas, who were, you know, very outspoken in the early stages of the pandemic. You know, so all those who have been afflicted by the virus have my, you know, my sympathy and my support in every way that they have confronted this terrible scourge. Secondly, is also to thank the organizations that have been at the forefront of the fight in the country. And these, of course, include the UN AIDS, which is now led by my dear spouse, the Honorable Winnie Byanyima, UNICEF,
Yes.
The global organizations that were set up and have been coordinating response, like the Global Fund, through which a lot of the resources that have come to deal with this have come. The Global Fund, contributed to by the global community. The US government has been especially, you know, helpful in terms of putting forward the resources to deal with the treatment of those who are suffering from HIV. And if these were not there, I don't know whether we would still have a country. So we have, survived in a large measure the pandemic thanks to the efforts mainly of organizations that are not domestic, that are not Ugandan.
I was just wondering whether you just forgot the Uganda AIDS Commission, or...
Well, the Uganda AIDS Commission, apart from being, a Uganda AIDS Commission here, really, and yes, they have done, quite some work, but they would never have done anything without the organizations that I have talked about. Because who funds them? You see? And that's where I will be going subsequently.
Okay.
Now, this response was initially quite successful, and that's why the whole world was looking at Uganda as an example of forwarding back the epidemic. Also, of course, what helped, I think, at the beginning was the sheer horror that the disease presented to the country. That's why it was called slim. That people would just, waste away. Yes. And, die like skeletons and visibly to everybody. So those pictures of people who were afflicted were in themselves chilling to everybody to know that there is danger. There is danger. And then the campaigns that were rolled out at the beginning of the pandemic were all quite helpful, as I have said, indeed, with the support of all these organizations. Now, and the government, I think, where the credit to the government has been due was to allow openness.
Okay.
Initially, many governments responded wrongly by seeking to, keep information of what is going on from anybody else, even to deny that there was a problem. There was a problem. Because they thought that would maybe interfere with tourism, with or other kinds of things that the country would benefit from. And so there was lack of openness in many other countries. Here, I think the positive response of the government in those days, the 1980s, was that there was openness.
Okay.
And this is indeed what helped to have all the kinds of research organizations and the inflow of resources to help was possible. It was made possible by the open policy that took place at that time. Now, however, what I think has been the biggest impediment to that initial progress has been from mainly two areas.
Okay.
The first one, I think, is the very weak healthcare system that I have been talking about, you know, which is a problem for all pandemics or epidemics, like we saw in COVID.
Yes.
That when you have no healthcare system, you cannot manage a pandemic. You know, you need to have the population in your healthcare system so that you know what is going on in the health of the population. Now that is where we have our biggest weakness, that we don't have primary health care where people are followed up right from their homes,
Okay.
you know, and how they, their health is maintained before they even become sick. That in fact, our healthcare system does not know the population of Uganda. its population is alien to it. There is no, they are not integrated into the healthcare system. And that's why you realize, for example, now that, you know, young people who are the biggest source of new infections. In fact, adolescents,
Yes.
you know, are the biggest source of new infections. And in those, in the new infections, adolescent girls form 2/3 of new infections. You know? Now, and later on, these also translate into the mother to child transmission.
Sure.
Because those active adolescents then become pregnant. They become pregnant when they don't know what
How to do.
their situation is even, you know? There are no facilities even to manage their pregnancies, you know, antenatal care for mothers. So in the event, they produce and still transmit to children. So we still have, and this, if we had an effective healthcare system, is one area where it could be actually severed. We still have mother-to-child transmission of more than 10%.
Yes.
You know? Now that is quite high, certainly avoidable. But you can only avoid it if you have a healthcare system, first of all, that you know, is caring and advising and managing the population from childhood, that has, you know, care for pregnant mothers, that they are in the healthcare system, they are screened, they are, you have the necessary treatment, they are managed, then that would be cut off. The messaging, the messaging would be greatly effective through that comprehensive healthcare system where people are going for medical checkups. You know, in Uganda, nobody goes for any medical checkup unless they are sick. They have nowhere to go, you know. So the absence of an effective healthcare system is one huge challenge in the management of the pandemic, just like in the management of all pandemics, including the treatment of those who are now sick. Because again, you know, one would need to plan for them to have enough laboratories across the country that will regularly check the levels and the trends of the infection, you know, so that relevant medicines are applied at the different times, and that they are not missed, you know. Then, you know, so the whole, from prevention to treatment, is the healthcare system. The effectiveness of the healthcare system is a problem. That is one major set of problems. But the second, and which is extremely critical, is the whole question of stigma. Stigma that goes with this, you know, infection. If we do not manage to deal with the stigma, people not wanting to be, you know, known, because if they are known, there are huge consequences. You know, they are isolated, they are frowned upon, they are, you know, seen as, you know, some undesirables, and as being guilty of something. And so the whole question of stigmatization of HIV positive people is possibly the biggest obstacle to the management of the pandemic, because people will not test for fear that if they test and find they are positive, that is likely to be used against them. People will not go for treatment even when they are positive, because they think, you know, going for treatment exposes them. You know, and you know, people will, you'll find that in homes, maybe a man tests and finds that he is positive, but he cannot reveal. Cannot reveal, and vice versa, of course, would be the case.
Everyone keeps quiet.
Yes, and in the meantime, you know, this goes on. So stigma is a big, big problem. And that has not, I don't think that we have paid any attention to the management of stigma. And regrettably, the contrary has been the case, where you find actually there are actions of government, of leaders that intensify stigmatization of people with HIV. You may recall, and well, I mean, maybe you were quite young then. In 2001, when I had declared to contest against Mr. Museveni, he called the international community media BBC, Al Jazeera, what, you know. He held a big press conference and said, you know, this message is an HIV Muslim. He's an HIV positive man. The office of the president is not for invalids.
That's too
This was from a head of state, a president addressing the world, saying that his competitor is an invalid because he believes, he himself, he had never tested me, he had never. And he said, this man is HIV positive, he is an invalid. The office of the president is not for invalids. Now, what does that do to the country? You are saying that HIV people are invalids and should not aspire to any office. So
if such is the person who is leading the fight against the...
Yes, so I'm talking about stigmatization, the increase of stigmatization. Even the way, and of course he was receiving a lot of accolades, which, as I have said, were simply because, which was good, he had an open policy for the country to talk about the problem. But without paying attention, as I have said, to the development or the increase of the presence and later on the increase of stigma in the community, you will not manage to deal with this pandemic. And you know, that was a typical example of how there was leadership failure, in fact criminal failure, because what he did was criminal actually. You continue up to now to hear similar, you know, for example, they have been, you know, saying that, you know, those who have HIV, you know, it is really their fault. You know, it's like, you know, touching in every hole. If a snake bites you,
it is you who...
you know, so making people feel guilty. Those who are HIV positive, as if they are guilty, condemned, you know, they are the problem. That is the driver of stigmatization. Recently, just very recently, I think about a month ago, I talked about it here, in fact. There was a public event again to launch a program for compulsory testing of people who are arrested for any reason, to compulsorily test them for HIV. Why, I cannot understand any person
those arrested
that is arrested, why you must compulsorily. Because, you know, as long as you make testing for HIV as something forceful, then people will resist it. Anything that is compelled on people, they will resist it. They will dodge it. They will, and it adds to the stigmatization, because the reason you are forcing it means there is, you know, so all these are drivers of stigmatization. And this is why, indeed, the wrong approach and wrong policies, whereas initially there was a sharp fall in the prevalence and spread of HIV, it picked up again. It picked up again and started growing. So you do the wrong things, you get the wrong results. And regrettably, we have been doing the wrong things. So, as I have said, two things, those two things, healthcare system and especially stigmatization. Now, I thanked the foreigners for supporting all the programs that have helped our country to manage, to contain, to even fold back the scourge. But because they were helpful, the government here totally went to sleep, you know? So
it was left in their hands now.
Yes. So, like the treatment for people with HIV, and we have about 1.6 million people who are positive here. The treatment, 97% is from foreigners. Now as we talk, foreigners have their own problems, which are also escalating. Their economies have serious problems.
Yes.
They have their wars to fight, you know, and they have already warned that they are going to stop this funding. I am not sure when they will completely put a stop, but it's coming. It's coming in the near future. And you don't see any plans, you know, on our part to start revving up our own budgets to take care of our own situation, because you cannot have a population that lives by courtesy of other people abroad, you know, and you are saying, I'm the president, I'm the minister of health of Uganda. You are not. So I think we are about to see another sharp upsurge of this problem if no interventions are made in a timely manner. And I think even that time has already run out to start taking of our responsibilities in all the areas that have been supported by foreign money. And moreover, you find, you know, government posturing, abusing these, you know, these Europeans are useless. These Americans, they think they know it all. They are useless. When they are the ones putting food in your in your hungry mouth, you know. So, you know, I think we have been, as a country, quite reckless in terms of our response to HIV. HIV is something that can be really stopped completely and in a fairly short time. And, you know, I've been following the plans that have been, as I have said, I happen to happily be close to one of the agencies, at least, that is focused on this problem. And I know that there are initiatives which, if they were embraced and resourced in the way that they should be, it is possible to end this in a decade, to stop mother to child, to completely deal with that adolescent, you know, explosion of the condition in young young people. And in a short time, this can be wound down. But we must do the right things.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Our viewers, at this moment, we are going to rest a bit and sip on a glass of water and then return. And when we return, we are still going to look at a number of issues. We shall be receiving your comments. Please keep sending in your comments. We shall be reading them, and Doctor will be reacting to your comments. We've already received a number of them, and when we return, we shall begin with those comments, and also we shall look at the sectarian talk in the country. You should remember that this very week, the former presidential candidate, Mr. Kableta, was arrested and is still arrested on issues of sectarianism, and we shall be diving into that and also other issues. Please stay with us.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digital,
as he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the Mighty Drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Luwe Delidian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
Real issues, real talk.
Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Wajana body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga nze tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. I miss you, bichi. Especially in better you good sinungi.
Neno omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting a topic yona gyanjagadde twogere ko tujja kwa tujogera kwanu ku the alternative dig talk ku share enganzi the snap talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
All right, welcome back from that short break. We are still here on the Interface Show with Dr. Kizza Besigye. As we are breaking off, Doctor was giving his submissions on what needs to be done and what hasn't been done in the fight against HIV. We want to conclude that and then get into something else. Doctor, in 2017, the president launched what was called the Presidential Fast Track Initiative to end HIV/AIDS by 2030. Do you really see we can achieve that?
Yeah, actually that initiative, as I pointed out a little earlier, it's not about the presidential thing that is attached to it. It is a worldwide initiative to end HIV by 2030. Of course, here, there is always the tendency to attach their names and so on. But it's a worldwide initiative to end HIV by 2030. And indeed, if the demands in that initiative were focused on, it is a distinct possibility that HIV can be forded. But one must, invest all that is necessary. It won't just end itself. It won't be ended by speeches. It will be ended by actions. For example, in our situation, I think it would greatly help if all adolescents, young people, apart from giving them the necessary information, and this can be done quite effectively, at least for the majority of them who are in school. It can be done at school. Give them all the necessary information. There are now facilities for self-testing. Give them the kits for testing themselves, so that it's up so that each kid knows what their situation is. As I have said, there is quite a bit of those who have got it from mother to child and who may grow to be adolescents, maybe even before they have started on treatment. So let each young person test themselves. If they are not willing to come to you to test, there is now capacity to test oneself.
Doctor, will they handle it? Won't we see suicides?
No. But that's the whole idea of getting them information.
Okay.
Information, I said, give them the necessary information, which is what, so that people know that once I am positive, and especially now, it's not, it can be managed.
Okay.
And you can live throughout life. You can have a full life without any problem. If you don't know or you don't do anything, that's when you are heading for sure death. So once they have the information that they can check themselves, and those who are negative will now be more conscious in making sure they don't become positive. But those who are positive will then be managed in a way that they cannot, spread it. Because if you have been appropriately managed on ARVs, you will not have the virus in your blood.
True.
And so you cannot spread it. Even if you actually had unprotected sex, you cannot spread it. So that's the sure way of ending it. If you are able to cut off the transmission, whether mother to child, whether HIV positive to an HIV negative, then you've dealt a death blow to the pandemic, and so this is possible. But we must invest the necessary resources.
Okay.
Like I've said, the test kits can be, spread out to all young people to test themselves, because of this level of stigma, because of the level of stigma in the country, they may not come to you, but they can test themselves. And once they have information of how to manage the results they get, then you'll have a positive response. These are some of the things, but we are not focused there. We are simply not focused there. We are focused on buying tear gas and and dealing with the opponents, buying drones and and terrorizing the country. That's the sure way to increase the transmission.
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much. Doctor, it seems that as we've always talked about, the abductions and the kidnaps in the country are seemingly not coming to an end at any one time. Just this week, the former presidential candidate, the former candidate, Kableta, was also picked from his house, put in a drone, taken to a place, and later we were informed that he was arrested over sectarian talk.
Yeah, first of all, this whole question of kidnapping or abducting people, it's really repugnant. It's really, it should be condemned with all the vehemence the whole world can muster. It's simply wrong. And I had some, stupid MP, sorry to use some of these harsh words, but one fails to find a word to describe somebody who was saying, these are not abductions, these are arrests. You wonder whether, what is rolling up in their minds, whether it's just porridge or whether they have any brains in what they call their heads. Because an arrest is described in the law, how it is carried out. You must be arrested by a police officer that has identified themselves, that has told you why you are being arrested, that is telling you where you are being taken, that you are informing the next persons to know why that you are being arrested and you are being taken to this place, and they can come with you even and see where you have been taken, and that you'll then be produced in a court of law within 48 hours. The arrest process is defined in law. So we would not be complaining. There would be nobody concerned if people were indeed simply arrested according to the law and managed in according to law, detained in a place provided by law. Because these people who disappear for weeks, for months, nobody knows where they are. And eventually they bring somebody, with all kinds of torture marks into court. And nobody takes the matter up to say, where have you brought this person from? How was he treated since he disappeared? Because families make alarms about the disappearance of their own people. We have not seen anybody held accountable for detaining people in places that are not gazetted places of detention. We have not seen anybody charged with torturing people that have been here, abducted or whatever. We have not seen. Indeed, some have disappeared without trace. So, I have said that certain people who hold public offices must take responsibility squarely for these heinous crimes that are being committed. And it's criminality. There is nothing short of that. The drone, it's not a drone. This is crime. These are, criminal outfits that are rampaging in the country, that are committing terrible offenses, and with impunity, with complete impunity. No accountability, no sanctions of any kind, total impunity. So the people who are charged with security, who have public offices, that we pay huge amounts of money every month to oversee the security of the people of Uganda, they should know that they themselves are criminals. They are criminals. I call them criminals. They are superintending over criminality. Mr. Museveni is superintending over criminality. Kahinda Otafire is superintending over criminality. General Jim Muhwezi is superintending over criminality. The defense minister, Sempija, what is the other name? Bamulanzechi Sempija Vincent is superintending over criminality. They must take direct responsibility. If you are not able to rein in those who are doing these crimes, the decent thing you can do is resign. Say, I do not want to become part of this criminality. Short of doing that, you are a criminal yourself. You are a criminal. So they should not masquerade around that they honorable this, honorable that. They are criminals. This kind of criminality cannot go on for years and months and so on. And people are just moving up and down that they are in these offices. They are criminals. And I think the country should focus on them as criminals. And we must demand the end of this criminality. Indeed, because we know that they will not end it themselves, we have a duty ourselves to end it. And that's why we've been calling on our people to wake up and we end this criminality. So I was very, very sad when I saw, the clips showing how the carburetors were, taken. Because somebody is not hiding. Somebody is in his office. You can invite them. Even you can say you are invited to come to the office. If he refuses, then you can pick him. And he can come to the office and you say, we heard you say this. This is against sectarian law. Do you have anything to say? He gives whatever he wants to say. If you think that you have done enough investigation and this is a crime, that you think that this is a crime that is ready to go to court, from CID headquarters, you head straight to court, place your charges. If it is a bailable offense, somebody can apply for bail, go back home, you bring the evidence to court, and if the is no defense against your evidence. He's sentenced and he goes to jail.
That would be a good Uganda.
That's the Uganda we want. But you arrest somebody on a case that, you know, is spreading, I don't know, hate or sectarian or what, and then you go to court. After, of course, even the prescribed, you detain them first of all in an unknown place, you eventually take them to court, charge them and say investigations are still going on. And year in, year out, investigations are still going on. The cases we were held on here in Kampala, the investigations are still going on. Months after, you know, and you are expected to be in cells, in jail. First of all, consuming money. Because if you are in prison, you are consuming taxpayers' money. They are giving you food. If you become sick, they have to treat you. If you know, they give you clothes you put on in the prison. All that is unnecessary expenditure. That's why all these prisons are overflowing with people, many of whom have even never been charged. Yet you find them. Now those in the prisons are charged. It's the ones in the police stations that are not charged, and police stations are teeming. You find people have been there for months in the police station over all kinds of funny cases. So this abuse of human rights is something that is really, I don't know what kind of words I can find to show how revolting it is, especially for people that claim, that lay the slightest claim to being freedom fighters. You know, when you hear the peace that was ushered in, you know, you say, these people are just mad, you know, because this is exactly why some of us went to the bush to fight. It's that revolting that, you know, when you know you simply have no right in a country, somebody can just pick you, take you and beat you, and when he's tired, he just throws you back, you know. What kind of country can that be? That's exactly what revolted us to go and fight. That's exactly what is going on today. And so you see these people calling themselves freedom or tafiri, you know, saying, but you know, this is saying I don't associate with this. If you don't associate, step out so that people can know that this is wrong. But all these are going on, they are in your eyes. You are going home and sleeping, coming back and going back home. And this is completely unacceptable.
Doctor, it seems like detention centers keep on mushrooming every now and then. The other time, people were up in arms against Nalfenya, and when Nalfenya was put down, closed, then others are rising up. Is this government capitalized?
Well, Nalfenya, of course, has never been closed. I have been there a couple of times since they said it was closed. But you see, as I have said, you know, it is simply NRM is organized crime. Is an organized.
Someone called it the most reactionary.
Yes, it is organized crime. The whole government functions as an organized criminal outfit. You know, that's exactly even how they steal, how they rob. You know, it's a mafia. It's like a mafia organization with Museveni at the top.
Yeah. So it's just criminality.
Absolutely.
Oh.
That's what it's now clearly behaving as. And of course, Kabuleta, to talk about sectarianism. Again, is an act of demonstrating utter shamelessness on the part of this junta. Because really, if you are running a government that is not even just sectarian but nepotistic, that you are the president, you have your wife as a minister, you have a minister of education, your sister in the education commission, your brother in this, your son in the, you know, and you talk about sectarian, and the whole place is tumukunde, tumuhimbize, tumuesije, ruwa mirama, you know, it's people are right, you know, to talk about it.
Okay.
And now they arrest those who talk about it, not those who do it. If it is an offense at all, the ones who should be in prison are the ones who are doing it in government. You know, they should be the ones in prison, not the one who talks about it. Me, let them come and pick me for talking about it. Another one will talk about it because it is there. You cannot ask people not to talk about what is clearly there, you know. And I don't know how they will even conduct the trials because it can be it's demonstrable. The sectarianism is demonstrable. And you know,
Doctor, there is a one Antonio Santos. He says, but the people who are being arrested are the ones who first defy the law. So how do you expect the security to waste time introducing themselves and so on?
That what?
That the people who are being arrested, they are the ones who first defy the law. So how do you expect the security to waste time introducing themselves? I think is.
You see, this is what I was telling you. That one, I don't know who he is.
Santos Antonio.
But Santos will also be, you know, moving around. So, you know, I can't. Do you understand what he's saying? Of course, for anybody to be arrested, there must be a suspicion that he has committed an offense. So I don't know what he's saying that they shouldn't.
Trying to say that they shouldn't introduce even themselves. That is wasting time. They simply come, grab you like they do, take you. They don't.
Let them change the law. Let them change the law so that there is no requirement for that, so that whoever wants to arrest any person for anything just grabs them, whether he is a policeman, whether, because, you know, at the very minimum, there should be people who are authorized to arrest. And the only way you discover who is authorized to arrest is to identify themselves. So if he's saying it's not necessary to identify yourself, it means I can also come and arrest you and take you wherever you want without any need to show that I have authority to arrest. You know? So, but these are the, you know, I'm sure it comes from some Ugandan somewhere, you know, walking around with the head. it's the, you know, that's why I said that the problem may be bigger, that we have satanic forces that have captured people. There are satanic forces that have captured people's minds. And people cannot see, cannot discern. The power of discernment, I think, has been seriously affected, especially amongst the elites, people who have been to school. Most of them, their power of discernment, I think, is grossly affected. That's why you can hear somebody make an effort and write something like that.
Doctor, there is also Kajuve Henry. He says, don't lecture police how to do their work. You think all suspects just allowed to be arrested and handcuffed? When you manhunt a suspect, you start human rights nonsense. That is Kajuve Henry.
Yes, fortunately, you know, there is what is called karma. Kaju the Henry will be arrested, he will be manhandled himself sooner or later. He will understand why it is wrong. You know? You see, as I have said, if somebody resists arrest, when you have gone through the processes that are described by law, and somebody resists arrest, there are procedures for managing that. But you must first come to that, you know? You don't just come anybody and you assume they will not be allowed what is provided in the law. In any case, why detain them even in places that are not provided for by law? Because if you arrest me from maybe Kololo or Nakasero or Bwandegea, there is the police station where you must take me. And at the police station, there is what must be done, you know? If I need to notify my lawyer I must have the facilities to notify my lawyer immediately. If I want a doctor, I should be able to access my doctor immediately. Certainly the people in my home must know that I am arrested and where I am. You know, those basics. So these people who are, I'm sure these are the ones who are indeed carrying out all those crimes, maybe the ones who can defend these kinds of crimes, you know. It's indefensible. Don't attempt to defend what is indefensible. Nobody is saying people should not be arrested. They simply must be arrested according to the law.
Okay. Doctor, there is also Agani Osuta. He says, you are here in peace and you are laughing because of the peace Museveni has brought in Uganda. Do you even know people in other countries are always in duka? Start appreciating the government endeavors other than having a negative mind on anything.
See, that's the exact stupidity that rests in the heads of most of our people. He thinks my laughing is a privilege. He thinks I'm privileged to laugh. I am allowed. He thinks somebody has made it, has created for me, you know, an opportunity to laugh. That's a nonsense. It's a right. It's a right that has been continuously abused in my case. I have been detained uncountable times. Not once has the government ever established what is called a prima facie case. You know, a reason for me to defend myself. I have never defended myself in all the cases that I have been taken, arrested for. None. Have they ever established enough reason for me to defend myself? But I've been detained in Moroto, in Karamoja, in Nakasongola, in Kabale, in Mbarara, in Wea. I've been detained in so many places, terrible places that I have had to endure for no cause at all. And you hear, you know, that person, if he is at all, saying,
Agani Osta,
saying, you know, I should be thankful because I have an opportunity to laugh. Of course, even if you are, you know, doing the most terrible things on me, it doesn't, I can still laugh at you. And that's partly why we live. We live because we are able to manage in spite of the terrible conditions in which we live.
So, Doctor, the peace was brought by Museveni.
that is the other sometimes it's very, very difficult, frankly, to respond to these kinds of most ridiculous things that one wouldn't hope to come out of a Ugandan, because at least that one should have the knowledge to know that the Museveni he's talking about that brought peace. I brought life to him before he brought. I was his doctor even as we fought. Which maybe if I wasn't, he wouldn't be here. So if there is any peace at all that was brought, then obviously I have my due share of credit. But you see, as I have said, it's the right of every Ugandan to live free. We were born free. We must live free. It's not granted by anybody. Rights are not granted. They are God-given. Nobody grants rights. Nobody grants freedoms. The fact that we have somebody who can write in English that does not know that basic truth shows you the crisis in our country, especially from people that have been to school, because I suspect that he must have been to school to have a smartphone and write English to you. I suspect he was in school. He has totally wasted, because surely somebody must know that, basic rights are not granted by anybody.
Okay. Doctor, we still have Antonio. He says, all opposition leaders are following your example of being defiant to any kind of arrest. Even if Kabuleta was invited gently, as you say, trust me, he wouldn't have defied. I think you take it on with this one. Nagawa Keila, he says, Doctor, you also know very well how police and army do their things. Why do you disagree to those arrests, yet they are suspects?
Well, I mean, both of them I don't think really merit any answer. Because I think somebody should write a comment that merits an answer. Because if you say, opposition people are defiant, therefore, they should have no right of being arrested in accordance with the law. Is that what you are saying? Because
that's what he's trying to say.
Whether opposition people are defiant, they are still, nobody should be treated outside the law. At any rate, the greatest number of people that have been kidnapped are not politicians. They are ordinary people. Those who are, in fact, that's the reason politicians are here. I am here. But, ordinary people are being, terrorized. There has been a lot of talk of the aid of the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi. Somebody called Jamshid, who was kidnapped. I don't know how long ago now. He's not yet seen. And many ordinary people that are grabbed on the sheikh who was captured, was he a political person? The sheikh who was captured on the same day as Kabuleta. So, it's so sad and depressing hearing. I suspect that this could actually be, the funny thing with the social media is that somebody can send 100 messages as different people when he is the same stupid person. And it can create it can give a wrong impression that many Ugandans of that type of thinking.
Yeah, you can also keep sending in your comment, and Doctor will be responding to your comments. Thank you for keeping it active. Doctor, there is Namono Faith. She says, Namono Faith Sharon, she says, when you are talking of a failed state, she says, a failed state, yet your businesses are actively running in the country. I don't know if that one also will get a comment from you. Is talking about when you talk of we are heading to a failed state, and she's trying to say your businesses are running actively. So,
well, of course, in a failed state, there are businesses which eventually fail with it. There is no doubt about that. Whether it is my small business, and I only have one very small business here in Zambia, whether it is those who own the big banks, whether it is those who have the big factories in Kampala, all of them will fail with the state. That's the rule. It will happen. If we don't stop it, it will happen. So don't think that there were no businesses in Somalia. There were flourishing businesses that went down with the country.
Okay.
You may have seen, a few years ago, in Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast was one of the countries with the most flourishing businesses and the skyscrapers and so on. They all went down in smoke. So, again, somebody just anxious to publish his or her ignorance really about how states fail. Of course, they fail with whatever business is there. If it helps, if it may be helpful to her, my own business has already collapsed as a result of the collapsing state.
Doctor, the same Kajuve Henry came back and is like, Besigye, just retire and mentor new leaders, just like Bobby Wine.
That's fine. I have no problem with mentoring new leaders, but I can never retire so that the country crushes me down with it. I will do everything as long as I still have some breath to make sure that our country can come back from the cliff where we are about to collapse. And every Ugandan that has a breath, whether you are 100 years, whether you are 3 years, you should do something to save the country. So, yes, mentoring new people, even what I am doing here is supposed to do that. But retiring from fighting for my survival and the survival of our country, that one you will have to forget.
Okay. We have Joy Nakato. It says, my president, kindly explain more about the excessive increase on food prices and how food is fundamental in every aspect. How can they talk about the peace Mr. Museveni has given us when he is gradually taking away the most important right of life? Because food, water, and oxygen are the three main cores of life. Without one, it leads to death. Yeah, that is Joy Nakato. Doctor, just the other day, your friend and follower, Luther Ferdinand, was also hit by iron bar men last Friday. Yeah, after asking him why he wasn't supporting MK. That was happening in Bugolobi. Yeah, he's saying he gained his consciousness just a day later. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, the food prices are up for a multitude of reasons. First, there is a general inflation in the country from, again, a number of causes. The fact that, but I think the more serious one being that we are spending what we don't have. In other words, if you spend what you don't have, you either borrow or you steal. And we are doing both. We are borrowing recklessly, in fact. That's why we are borrowing from money lenders at very high cost of borrowing. But secondly, we are stealing. The government is officially stealing from the population, yes. When the government prints money, it is theft. It is theft from those who have money. It's pickpocketing. They pickpocket in everybody's pocket. And the government has been indeed printing money. So, money which has not been earned through anything means the value of the money that had been earned through something is lowered. The value of our money has gone down because of illicit money. It is the same thing as printing money from Katwe, except that these ones print it from Bank of Uganda. But it is the same.
Okay.
So that means the value of money has gone down. And therefore, the cost of all commodities must go up. But secondly, of course, we have also had challenges with the climate. Having drought in certain areas, or rains when not expected, changed seasons, so that production of food itself has gone down. So there are more mouths coming to look for food every day, but the amount of food has been going down. Therefore, the prices of that food will go up. And this is again because, first, we have not done well in managing our environment, which is causing all this, draining all the swamps, cutting all the trees, and all other terrible things that we have been doing. And on the other hand, we have not used the technology to support production, because we still have large freshwater bodies, but we don't have the capacity to take that water to the gardens. We have not invested in irrigation. So food is going to remain a challenge for some time. I'm very sad to hear about the iron bar victim, Luther Ferdinand. But as I pointed out at the beginning of the program, you know, this is something that is escalating. In his case, of course, it seems to have been politically motivated by those who think that, you know, he does not support them. That would be extremely, even more sad, because, you know, the best way to get anybody to support you is to convince them. It's not to shoot them, it's not to hit them with iron bars, because first of all, if you do hit somebody and he dies, I don't think his family will support you. But if he doesn't die, he will even be more annoyed to oppose you. So it does not make any sense in forcing anybody to support you. But again, we are dealing with organized crime, as I said. NRM is simply an organized crime outfit, criminal outfit. And so we don't expect anything better really out of it. It's sad, but it's a reality we are dealing with.
Doctor, maybe we would like to pick your comment on the conduct of MP Francis Zake when he stood up in Parliament and he put up an opposition wanting Parliament to discuss the torture and the human rights issues, and then the abduction and kidnap, and he was given no room.
Well, I did not follow, and I frankly hardly follow what goes on in that parliament, because frankly, I don't think that it's a parliament worth paying attention to. I think it's a useless body in the main. There are a few people there who still, try to make sense of from there, but hopefully few, very few. But the House itself, even in the way it's conducted, really, I don't know whether it merits the high esteem of being a parliament, a national parliament. And so I would not be surprised, indeed, if the Honorable Zake was treated in the way you say. Don't forget that a while back, he was hounded from a position to which he was appointed by his party. And I think that is still playing out. He's challenging his removal from office. So I'm sure those who removed him will not be amused to see him stand up for any reason. They'll want to crush him from effectively participating in the work of the House. But Zake is, also somebody whom you can't push down easily. So I would not be surprised if he resisted. If you are saying, as you are saying, that he wanted to raise the issue of abductions, again, this is an issue that should, the parliament itself, should, even without Zake raising it, if it was a parliament, or if it wants to have any claim to being a parliament, the parliament itself should bring it up. If the ministers are not, doing anything like I said, parliament itself should call them to order. That's the whole idea. Parliament is an oversight body, and there is no way anybody can hide their head in the sand and say there is no abduction and kidnap and torture and illegal detentions and so on, that it's not there. So if it is there, then whether it's Zake, whether it's the speaker, the speaker herself or the deputy speaker should ensure that it is discussed. It's a matter that needs to be discussed urgently, if indeed that still seeks to remain with some semblance of the role of a parliament. Okay. So I unfortunately, I don't know what exactly transpired in this particular case with Vulnerable Zake. But if that is what he intended to raise, and indeed that he was stopped from raising it, then it would be in, I think, in keeping with what we have come to be used with in respect of that parliament. Okay. There are many things which have been passed very clearly or very wrongly, very shabbily even, you know, where those in favor say aye, to the contrary no, and everybody says no, the ayes have it, and somebody walks out, jumps up and walks out. You know, this is why I say that the whole NRM is a criminal outfit, including those parliament, they are just now operating as criminal outfits without any doubt.
So, Doctor, as we conclude on that very point, where Muhoozi came up and he was pointing that NRM is the most reactionary organization in the country. You seem to have agreed with what he's pointing out and added what you've just added. What are the consequences of all his talks now against the party that we believe he would be perhaps supporting?
Well, I think what Muhoozi is doing, and I think very successfully, is showing that really there is no more authority in this country. And maybe what is remaining is for him to name himself the president, because clearly there is simply no authority. You know, all these things you are saying he's writing, he claims to write them. I mean, he's writing them on his official timeline, you know, of the senior presidential advisor in charge of military, in charge of special operations. He is saying them as a serving officer of the Uganda People's Defense Force, you know, and he is showing that the UPDF is not there at all, cannot respond to him. He has demonstrated that sufficiently, that the UPDF cannot respond to him. He said, among other things, that these forces which have gathered in Congo are going to do absolutely nothing. They are wasting their time.
Unless they bring back a general.
Unless he comes back. Now, there is a commander, chief of defense forces in Uganda, somebody who goes also with the flag, chief of defense forces, with protection, chief of defense forces, somebody called them Buddy. You know, this somebody is supposed to be in charge of this one. He has deployed forces. We have, as a country, have deployed a lot of money, and he's telling you officially that this is nonsense. They are not going to do anything. Those of Kenya, those of Tanzania, those of what that have gathered will not do anything without me. And indeed, no response. You know, that shows you that, you know, those in authority have collapsed. Maybe we just wait and he declares himself now the president, and nobody will still do anything. So this is what constitutes a failed state. This is what we were talking about earlier. That you know, somebody can, you know, do all these kinds of things. So yes, NRM as I have said, is a criminal organization, superintended over by his father. He's the mafia don. He's the one on top of this organization, and the one that has brought all what he's talking about in place, including himself, Mr. Muhoozi or General Muhoozi, whatever he calls himself. I have previously said that he entered the UPDF illegally, was promoted illegally.
As we finish.
And stays there, you know, illegally. But all done by his, thanks to his father. So we are in a very, very murky period. Okay. We need to pray for this country.
As we finish, Doctor.
But as we conclude, I think the clear indication here is that all Ugandans need to very urgently wake up, organize, and we say enough is enough. Work for transition, a transition from gun rule to people rule that will set the country on a new footing. Without that, we are in trouble. I thank you and I wish you a great weekend in spite of all the challenges, and a good week ahead. Till next Saturday, God bless you.
All right. Thank you all our viewers. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the resources. Thank you for following us each and every time. I remain Nixon Segawa. Please stay tuned to the DigTalk platform. Thank you.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.